Hi there, my name is Kurt Lewis. Thanks for joining me today. Today's presentation is called The Right Price for Every Family, Compassionately and Responsibly Discounting Tuition. Now, I'm very excited to be with you today to talk about what is kind of a complex and touchy subject, but can be made much simpler and much more fair and appropriate for all families involved, and hopefully help you welcome more families into your schools. So this presentation is for marketers, principals, superintendents, anyone who has an interest in bringing families into schools, and anyone who might deal with the tuition that those families might pay. This can be a sensitive topic, so we're going to try to get through it as sensitively as possible. So let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about myself first. I'll allow you to pause the video here if you want to learn more about me, but suffice it to say that I've been in Catholic school marketing for about a decade now, and I work now as a consultant for Catholic schools. My company is called Kurt Lewis Enrollment Marketing Solutions. So if you ever need anything from me, please let me know. These are some of the services that I provide for you. Customizable enrollment and marketing plans. One of the biggest things that I do quite a lot is website reviews. So if you feel like your website could use some work, I can definitely do that for you. And the most important thing to know about what I do is that you can pay for it through title funds. A lot of what I do is coaching. And so if you have additional title funds left over, this is a terrific way to invest in your school. I love helping schools with their marketing. Summertime is a great time to work on those marketing efforts. We've got another webinar coming up next week about summertime marketing strategies, and I'll be giving that one. So if you ever need any help over the summer, please give me a call. I'll be around and I would love to work with you. But this is how you can reach me here at my website, kurtthemarketer.com, facebook.com/kurtthemarketer, or instagram.com/kurtthemarketer. And my email address is kurtthemarketer@gmail.com. You'll see that at the end of the presentation as well. But throughout this presentation, if you see anything that you have questions about, I would love for you to reach out and I can talk to you more about it. You can also come and find me in person if you'd like, because there is a terrific conference coming up in Dallas. It's called the Elevate Conference. It's put on by Facts from July 11th through 14th this year, 2022. And I'll be offering two presentations during that conference. One is called the Marketing Jumpstart. That is an hour-long intensive on everything you could want to know about marketing your school. It is fantastic. I can't tell you how wonderful it is. And Next Level Web Strategies, which helps you improve your website, improve your social media offerings so that the people who see you out in the world will want to make that decision to come in and tour your school. I offer trainings at every part of that enrollment continuum, whether it's your website, your general marketing, or how to get people into your school, but then how to give them a great tour, and all that kind of good stuff too. So please reach out to me and please come and see me in Dallas. I'd love to see you there. Following this presentation, which we're sending out as a video through the Presido project, the Presido project will give you a link to this recording. And you will also be able to use the link that is in the slides to reach the EMS Digital Marketing Resource Library. Now, that is well worth the cost of admission, which it turns out is free. You're seeing this video for free. You can go to that library for free, and you're going to get an enormous amount of resources just because you came and watched this presentation. I can help you with so many different things. And once you see the things that are in there, you're going to realize there's a ton of great stuff. But I can offer a lot of nuance for you and help you put these tools into action in your school, both over the summer and through the whole coming next school year. So I hope that you are getting ready for the end of the school year and you're going to have a fantastic summer and hopefully get to take some time off. So whenever there's time, I'd love to talk to you about your marketing, but more than anything, please rest up. We need you strong and ready to go for next school year. So let's get into it. Here we go. The right price for every family, compassionately and responsibly discounting tuition. Now, the reason that I know so much about this topic, despite the fact that I am a marketer, and you might think that school marketers might not work a lot with parents' tuition rates. Tuition rates are often left to the principal, the registrar, possibly the administrative assistant, possibly a committee. The marketer doesn't have a lot to do with enrollment, with tuition. But tuition has a lot to do with enrollment. So as a marketer, it was often frustrating for me to sit in the school office, do a lot of great things to bring people in for tours, to get them excited about our website. Then when they would contact the school, they'd hear the tuition amount and they'd say, well, I can't afford it, so I'm not going to take the next step. I'm not even going to come for a tour. Or we'd get them through tours and they'd say, that's just too much. We can't afford that. And there were times when we turned families away because of that. As it happened, I was working in Chicago where there's not a lot of, say, school choice dollars available like there are in some other states like Florida. Excuse me. It was heartbreaking, and we offered an enormous amount of financial aid at the school where I worked. We were offering discounts all the time, about 85% of our families were receiving some level of financial aid or discount. But that said, we still could not welcome a lot more families because of the breaking point that we had where our local diocese wanted us to be bringing in more tuition per student than we were. Now, that became a big problem while I was working at that school. And then I was hired to work at the Archdiocese itself, and it became my mission to fix that problem. So let me tell you about the solution that I walked into and that a lot of schools are in currently. Many Catholic schools are experiencing the following conditions: diverse socioeconomic communities with families at widely varying income levels. Of course, you're pulling in families from all over the place. Very few schools are pulling from just one socioeconomic community or level. 2, under enrollment. You have empty seats in your classrooms with large numbers of empty seats in certain sections. So diverse socioeconomic communities, under enrollment, and the published list or list tuition rate is set at a level that's not affordable for many of the families that could otherwise be served by the school. So they have an interest, but they don't have the money. Insufficient funded scholarships for all who are in need and apply. Now, obviously, the very best way to offer financial aid to people would be to have funded scholarships. That means you have a robust financial aid program, you have a robust fundraising program and development program where you're bringing a lot of dollars in so that you can give them back out to families and allow them to pay less tuition because you can offer them these dollars to match that missing tuition. That's not happening at a lot of schools. And of course, the schools that are in communities that face a financial challenge, often the schools themselves are not able to raise those funds. They haven't started that program yet, or they simply just don't have the alumni base to raise those kinds of dollars. And we'll talk about that fundraising aspect a little bit later on, but it's simply a fact. The schools in lower income communities, which have more students who would be interested in the school but can't afford it, often do not have the alumni base or the fundraising base to offset that affordability problem. So we see all of these. We've got families who want to come to our schools, but they just can't. But here's the thing. Turning families away from open seats without offering them a need-based discounted tuition rate is both inconsistent with our values and an entirely avoidable hit to our financial outcomes, even if the school has no or no more scholarship funding to use. That's a lot to take in, but basically what we're saying is if you have a family come to your school and they're interested in your school and they can pay something, but they can't pay all, it is better to have that family than to not have them. And that should be obvious. We should be looking at our mission and saying, we want to educate every child in the faith. We want to bring them into this Catholic school system. We want to educate them in the way that we know is best, where we bring them closer to God and also form them as human beings and form their brains with all of this academic information that we have. So every empty seat is a soul and a brain we could be forming. We should want that. We should want every empty seat to be filled. And here's the main thing to understand. When I have this argument, and I've had this argument many times, when I have this argument with folks who say we can't discount tuition because we're going to lose money when we bring in a student who is discounted, an empty seat is worth $0. To say nothing of the fact that it's a soul and a brain we could be educating, that is an empty seat and it is worth $0. If you bring in a student who pays more than $0, that is income. That is not a loss. We would not have had that student if we had not discounted. We now have them. We are now getting that tuition. And hopefully if we bring them in early enough, we're getting that tuition throughout their career. So it is better to have that seat filled from a bottom line standpoint, but it's way better to have that seat filled from a mission standpoint. So let's look at how all of that works. But there are complications. So in the Archdiocese of Chicago, we had a model called Fill the Plane. And Fill the Plane is based on how planes themselves in the real world are filled. Everyone on that plane is paying a different rate based on the day that they bought their ticket, where they're sitting on the plane, whether or not they chose their seat, all sorts of different things. And those prices change throughout the history of a flight being booked. So schools were told to use this Fill the Plane model where they said, you know what, every student might pay a different rate. You might have a list rate, and some people are paying that list rate, but some people are paying less than that. Some people are paying significantly less than that. So they offered that opportunity to the schools. They said, fill the plane, bring in students, because we understand that an empty seat is $0. Bring in students at whatever rate is appropriate for them. So schools started doing it. So we were told to fill the plane with students paying different rates, but there was a lack of consistent guidance on best practices around how to do that. So schools were doing it very differently. And without those supportive tools, some schools misdiscounted. And how do you misdiscount? Well, either you offer a low discount and high tuition, which means that students didn't enroll. They still could not afford it because the discount was not high enough. Schools were worried about affecting their bottom line, and so they didn't appropriately discount. But then there were schools that offered a high discount and low tuition. Those schools were capturing little to no revenue on those students because they were charging very little to them. And then often the families that they brought in were not even paying that small amount that they were supposed to be paying. So they were capturing very little revenue. And so we had those issues on both ends. We weren't pulling in students because the discount wasn't correct, or we were pulling in students, but we were pulling in very little revenue. And not a lot of guidance had been offered around that. Other schools were not using any means testing to set the right tuition rate. So they weren't guaranteeing that families actually had the need or were able to pay the amount that they were going to be charged. Furthering that complication, that fill the plane regimen, we also didn't have tracking tools. We also were not appropriately tracking how students were being discounted, why they were being discounted, and what their rates were. And some of these schools that I went into, my own included when I started working there, had reported tuition rates that were written on Post-it notes. You would make a deal with the family, you'd figure it out, you write it down on a Post-it note, and you just had to remember that's what that family is paying. That means that successive employees then were left with little to no proof that these families had a deal, that they were paying a certain rate. So you'd come in the next year, and if you had changed over, say, your principal or your administrative assistant or your registrar, that family could come and say, we were paying this amount. And hopefully they're telling the truth. We don't have proof of it. So a lot of schools were forced to not offer that level of aid the second year because the family was just, it had never been documented. There had never been a system to take that down. So that opened the door to fraudulent activity, and that actually opened the door to fraudulent activity on both ends. To be completely frank, there were some schools who figured out that they could charge a certain amount, report that they were charging a different amount, and then use that money that was the difference themselves. This was a handful of individuals who decided to do this and defraud, and it's a really bad and disappointing practice. But what that ended up leading to was an unproductive focus on managing unfunded financial aid. So there was a whiplash effect where the diocese came back and said, Fill the Plane has been a disaster. We haven't gotten enough students and we haven't gotten enough revenue. So we're going to tell you to stop offering that Fill the Plane model. We're going to tell you to stop offering differentiated tuition rates. And we're going to manage unfunded financial aid. So you can give out all the financial aid you want as long as it's funded, as long as somebody has already paid into that program, as long as you have a funded scholarship from the outside or school choice dollars or whatever it might be, but no funding beyond that, no discounting beyond what you can actually pay for. So in some diocese, schools were given budget templates and policies which encouraged managing financial aid or tuition discounts to a particular limit, and that limit was set quite low. Some schools had more robust fundraising development programs, meaning they could offer more aid. They were bringing in more dollars so they could afford to bring in more students. And while it is recommended that schools have a development program and use those funds judiciously, the schools which are most successful at fundraising are often the ones with the lowest level of financial need among their students. So you can see the catch-22 there. If you're a school that has a high level of financial need in your neighborhood, you are less likely to have the dollars to offer. Requiring funded aid or limiting unfunded aid in this context, in this particular context, is harmful to enrollment and financial results. Now, when I say I've had this argument, I really mean it. I've argued this point with principals, I've argued this point with pastors, I've argued this point with an archbishop. And all of those arguments came out on my side. We realized that this had to change. We had to find a way to welcome students in responsibly, because otherwise we were going to lose a ton of families who needed us and at a time when we needed them. And that was just an awful way to go. So here was the solution. And some of this is going to sound simple, but I should tell you up front, it took me 2 solid years of work at the Archdiocese to make this happen. But here's the solution. For any empty seat within a section, recruit families with discounted tuition rates subject to their verified needs. That is the short version. Now, I could end the webinar here, but there's a lot more to talk about, but that is the bottom line. Now, what do I mean by empty seats, though? An empty seat means that adding a student will not lead to additional expense. You already have a classroom full of students. You already have a teacher at the front who's being paid. You're not adding any seats. You have a classroom that could hold 30, and right now it's got 25 students in it. So you've got 5 empty seats. They're already paid for. The addition of that student wouldn't cost you anything extra. Maybe it would cost you more in materials or something like that, but maybe you have a material fee that offsets that. Either way, we're not adding classrooms. We're not adding desks. We're just filling the ones that are currently empty. That's what we mean by empty seats. Now, the situation should be there are no alternative applicants. And that means that there are no other applicants who could pay the full amount. As a business model, it would be appropriate to try to take as many full paying students as possible. If they're lining up at your door and you see a lot of students who can pay the full amount, yes, it would be terrific if we can take all of them first. If it is your mission to serve more low-income students, you can kind of put that to the side. But when there are no alternative applicants who can pay full tuition, filling that seat with any revenue from a new family improves enrollment and it improves your financial results. That's an extra student and another $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 toward your bottom line. How could that be bad? So this was the argument that I had over and over and over again, where they would say, if we discount tuition, we lose money on that student. No, we do not. We have already lost money on that empty seat. Currently, we're losing $5,000. If our tuition is $5,000, we're losing $5,000 having an empty seat in that room. So we've already taken that loss. We could improve our outcomes by adding a student in that seat. So we add a little bit of revenue and we add another student. How is that a bad thing? That's a great thing. You want to improve your enrollment. You want to improve your revenue. You fill empty seats with discounted students. Managing your financial aid program with clearly communicated processes ensures success and satisfaction for your staff and the community. This slide is the entire presentation. Really, it is what we need to be doing. But we need to do it responsibly. We really need to take our time with it and be careful with it. Now, before I go into how we're going to take our time with it and be careful with it, I want to go into some caveats. So here's a brief interlude of caveats. You need to follow the guidance, advice, policies, and requirements of your local diocese. You're watching me. I am an outsider. I'm a consultant. I don't work in your diocese. I don't work in any diocese. I work for a whole bunch of dioceses, but I am not employed directly by any of those dioceses. I'm employed by myself and I'm paid by the schools within them. The advice that I offer any school, any diocese, any superintendent, any pastor, any teacher, any principal needs to be in line with whatever is the advice of the local diocese. If I'm saying something that does not agree with your local diocese, you can stop the video right now, and I'm not going to get you in trouble. And please don't get me in trouble. Don't go out there saying, well, Kurt told me to do this. But then again, if you want to do that, I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to come and have this argument with people. So, but just know that first and foremost, if what I'm saying does not agree with your diocesan policy, don't do it. You can work to change that policy, but don't go rogue and start just doing things in your school because that's what Kurt told you to do. If you believe that your diocese would benefit from input on this topic, I'd be happy to speak to them. I would love to talk to the appropriate diocesan staff members. If you believe that your diocese does not have quite the right idea about offering discounts to families or how we fund our schools or about financial aid, I'd love to talk to them. I have plenty of experience here in increasing enrollment and increasing revenue to schools and in serving low-income families and in finding students who need us, like I said, at a time when we need them. So if you believe that your diocese would benefit from a conversation like this, send them my way or send me their way. But again, follow the guidance, advice, policies, or requirements of your parishes or schools leadership, whether it's the pastor, the principal, the financial manager, the budget committee, the advisory board, whoever is in charge of those dollars and cents, follow their guidance. Again, we don't want to go rogue and start bringing in students at discounted rates that we believe are correct if it's going to cause a rift in any of these ways or cause people even to lose their jobs. I've seen that happen. We need to be careful about this and follow the rules. Again, if you don't think the rules are right, we can approach that, but you do need to follow them. Again, if you believe your parish or school's leadership would benefit from input on this topic, I'd be happy to speak to them as well. kurtthemarketer@gmail.com. Another brief interlude, the marketer's role in a school. Many people who attend the webinars that I offer, and this particular presentation, are themselves school level marketers. Some of you are principals, some of you are superintendents, but quite a lot of the people who attend these trainings are marketers. That can be a tough position to be in because, again, we are tasked with bringing as many people into the school as possible. But really our job is visibility. As a marketer, I am trying to make the school more visible. My measured metric should be visits to our school website. Have I driven more people to visit the school website and then decide to come in and take a tour? If I did that, I'm a successful marketer. If they enrolled in the school or may not be my job. If I'm also the person who gives tours, then that is something I'm responsible for. But often the marketer is not someone who offers the final financial aid number or the final tuition number to a family. So there have been many occasions on which I have brought someone to the website successfully. I've brought them into the school for a tour successfully. I've offered that tour successfully and they loved it and they wanted to come to the school. And then it was out of my hands. It was in the hands of the person who had to decide their tuition rate. So they would go to the registrar and work with them. And then they'd come back and tell me, I loved your school. It was wonderful. We can't afford it. That wasn't down to me. That wasn't down to me, the marketer. I did my job. But the hard part is a lot of marketers in this country at schools are being measured by how many students actually enroll in the school every year, when some of that is not your responsibility. So let me talk a little bit about your role in the school and in this part of it. Overall, you're there to generate interest. If the traffic increases, you're doing your job. Converting a prospective family to an enrolled family is not solely your responsibility. We find that the primary reason families opt not to enroll even after touring a school is that affordability piece, because schools tend to view marketers in terms of enrollment. Marketers need to be part of this financial aid decision. So if your school has a marketer, or if you are the marketer at your school, you do need to be involved or at least aware of this financial aid process. Because a lot of times your job or your evaluation depends on it. It depends on the school, the kids coming into the school. So you do need to be part of this financial aid process. Financial aid, marketers' role in financial aid, you need to understand the availability. First of all, what's available at the beginning of the school year, both funded and unfunded. Is there a scholarship fund that you are working out of? If so, you know that I have X amount of dollars that I can allocate to students or help people allocate to students as we go through the year. Is there an unfunded aid number that I need to be working toward? Let's say our local diocese has approved us for $10,000 in unfunded financial aid, and I decide I'm going to help 10 families get $1,000 a piece to fund their education here, something like that. But you need to be aware of what is available and what is acceptable. Then you need to partner with your principal, your business manager, your pastor, other pertinent groups, whoever is working on this financial aid piece, to implement a strong financial aid and tuition discounting program. This is a responsible thing to do. It is the compassionate thing to do. If your school does not currently discount tuition or has imposed a limit on the number of or amount of discounts, be a passionate advocate on behalf of families in need. Stand up for them. Like I said, I spent 2 years at the Archdiocese of Chicago standing up for families in need and saying we have to change this. We've taken away schools' ability to offer discounts to families. We have taken away the fill the plane model. We've put them towards this managed financial aid number that they have to hit. And if they go above that, they're punished. I was passionately advocating day after day after day. And I had the arguments and I did all of the work and it finally worked, but it took time. It doesn't need to for you because we've already developed the plan. We've already made it work. So again, let me reiterate the solution. For any empty seat within a section, recruit families with discounted tuition rates subject to their verified need. There's a lot of caveats in that sentence, so we're going to go through all of them. So here we go. I know that I want to bring in more families. I know that I'm going to need to discount those families, but I know that I need a responsible way to do it. So in those 2 years, when they said to me, well, Kurt, how are we going to do it? How are we going to discount these families? I developed a simple little device called the 5 Fundamentals of Financial Aid, or the 5 F's. What are those F's? For a successful financial aid program, ensure that the following elements in place. Those F's are a financial aid assessor, financial aid committee, fill the right seats, a floor, and a finalized tuition agreement. 5 F's. 5 steps that are deceptively simple, but can be actually simple. Like I said, I've done the work for you. I can give you all of the documents that you need to make this plan happen. Just reach out to me. This is not something I'm charging for. I want you to bring in more students. So let's talk about those 5 F's. What are the 5 F's? What do they mean? This is what you need in order to have a responsible financial aid program. We could just go out there again and start discounting students, writing it on Post-its. It's not going to fly. It's not going to be sustainable over time. A financial aid assessor. Hopefully your school already has one of these in place. Schools should use a third-party assessor to help determine a reasonable and just financial aid offer for all applicants. Facts and Smart, those are the 2 most commonly used financial aid assessor programs. Quite a lot of schools that I work with use Facts, and it's terrific. It's a wonderful, wonderful program, and it tells you the level of need that a student has. Now, here's the downside of a financial aid assessor. A lot of them will bring back a response that says this student can't afford tuition at all. In order to attend your school, they would need a full ride scholarship. So as I worked at the school where I was, at St. Pius V, where I was there for 5 years, almost every single family that I would put into the financial aid assessor would come back with this response saying they need a full ride to your school if they're going to come. A lot of schools stopped using their assessors because of that. It didn't offer them valuable information. Now, the assessors have gotten better since then, but for us, what that was confirmation that this family had need. This family has financial need and therefore needs to be discounted in some way. So even if the number that it spit out wasn't super helpful, the fact that the family has financial need was what we needed. Some dioceses with scholarship programs and states with school choice, they already require these. So for example, in Chicago, Facts Grant and Aid, that product is required of schools for the Archdiocese, Caritas, and Phoenix scholarships. In order for a family to be eligible, they have to be in that Facts system. So in a lot of places, this already exists, you're already using it. It's an assurance to families that your process is consistent and unbiased. So families are looking at this tool and saying, that is taking out some of the subjectivity. And it's saying that I literally definitely have need. Cats behind me are going a little crazy, so hopefully you enjoy that in the background. But it's an assurance to those families that we're doing this in an unbiased way. If the vendor fee is a barrier to families, waive that fee. And I know that's a lot to say because a lot of times the vendors themselves are charging a certain amount to put families into this assessor. But if the family can't afford that fee, it is a small amount that you can waive and cover yourself. And you can build that into your budget. If it's possible at all to not charge them for it, don't. I mean, any barrier that you put up to a family financially is another barrier for them to join your school. The third-party assessment is just one, albeit a key input into the financial aid process. So don't think that that is the end-all be-all. Once you see the number in this program, we're going to move from there. It is just step 1. The results of that assessment should be given to step 2, the financial aid committee. This is by far the most important piece and by far the least common. This is the one that people really are not doing out in the schools as much as they need to be. Often financial aid decisions are made by one person, 2 people, and there aren't clear reasons why those decisions are made. It's not sent to a committee who can make those decisions responsibly. It's just made in the moment by whomever is available to do so. So in some cases, that leads to, again, that over discounting, the people saying we can give discounts to all these different people because we don't have those kinds of checks and balances in place, or under discounting. I'm the person who makes those decisions. We don't have the money. I'm not going to make a discount. So instead, what we need is a committee. Typically, this is a group of 3 to 5 individuals, including the pastor, the business manager, the principal, marketer, finance council member, and/or a school board member. No current parents. This is none of anyone's business outside of these people. So we don't want current parents involved in making financial aid decisions for other parents. That would be inappropriate. Financial aid committee's process is the assurance to families that decisions are consistent, confidential, and credible. The fact that we have a financial aid committee who are reviewing all of the documents, all of the evidence at hand, and saying this is the appropriate rate for you, that is an assurance to family that we're doing our best, that we're trying to be as consistent and credible as we can be. Now, the principal and pastor are able to make this process more fair and unbiased while still considering the specific need of each family. So you need someone who has a big heart for the people who are coming in. Might be your principal, might be your pastor, might be both. And both of them are saying, we have this level of financial aid need in our community. let's bring in as many students as possible who have that need, and we'll find a way to serve them. You also need other people on that financial aid committee who are looking at the numbers in black and white and saying, we can't do that. We cannot offer this family a $2,500 discount. We can offer them a $1,000 discount. I'd be fine with that. So we come to that agreement as a committee instead of having one person who is either pro or against this financial aid. Instead of having that one person make the decision, we send it to the committee. Now, this committee needs to assemble frequently and frequently enough to provide timely feedback to applications as they come in. You're going to have a lot of applications for financial aid in all likelihood, a lot of people who are hoping to get this. So we need to collect those as quickly as possible and get them out to the committee to make their decision. Now, there are multiple ways to do this, especially in this post-COVID era. We've all gotten very used to Zoom meetings and things like that. And in a time where we have tons and tons of communication methods at our hands, we can give this evidence and all of these applications to people, and they can consider them on their own time, and we can put that information all together and make the decision that way. Or you can have a weekly or every other week Zoom meeting that is 30 minutes long, and we just review each of these applications and we say, done, done, done. We don't necessarily see enough evidence for this family to get a discount. This family, we would need to discount too significantly. We can't help them. This family is right there in that sweet spot where we can offer this discount and they should be fine. But they need to meet as regularly as possible. This is a complex task, of course. I'm available. I'm available to consult you and advise your committee to help you build and improve your procedures, to help you build and improve the committee. I'd love to help with that. I would absolutely love to. So please give me a shout if you're looking to do something like that. That's your financial aid committee. The next F is fill the right seats. This means being selective, not being exclusive. And that's it's a tricky difference. We have a lot of schools out there who feel a lot more exclusive than selective. They serve a predominantly higher income population, and they can turn people away if they can't afford it because they have plenty of students lined up, to come into that school who can pay full tuition. That feels like exclusive. I prefer selective. We can find the students who are right for our school. Now, this was put into place because there were a lot of concerns from people who said, I need a bunch of students. You're telling me I can discount tuition. So every student who comes to my school and says, I want to join up, I should give them a discount and get them in as quickly as possible. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm saying that you need to be selective. That is our right and responsibility as a private institution to make sure that these students are going to be the right fit for us and we're going to be the right fit for them. So at the start of every enrollment season, develop your max enrollment goal for each section in order to understand the number of empty seats available. Your goal might be different from your budget. Your budget might say we need 25 students per classroom in order to pay the teacher and pay all the expenses that we have. Your goal might be 28 students, that we're trying to get to that goal. We have 3 empty seats that we need to fill. Those are the seats that we can use these discounts for because we already have these 25 kids lined up. If the opportunity presents itself, you may not want maximum enrollment in every classroom. And there are a variety of reasons for this. So consider each teacher's ability to support incrementally more students. You have some teachers in your school who could have 50 kids in their classroom and have no problem keeping them in order. They've got great structure. They understand how to work with a classroom and with a large crowd, and they're going to be fine. You have other teachers who struggle to manage small classrooms, whether that's because they're early in their career or we're still working on some of their strategies. It's just a fact, and we don't want to overwhelm those teachers. I've been in that situation before where we took too many students in for a teacher who was relatively new, and we lost that classroom for a year. It just wasn't pretty. It was really kind of a horrible situation, and we should have known that we couldn't overwhelm this particular teacher with that many students, but there we were. You should also consider the total impact of a larger number of new students academically and culturally. If you pride yourself on being a very small school environment and having a terrific student to teacher ratio and making every student feel like they're never going to get lost inside of that school, this is our small pond, you're all big fish. If you start adding a bunch of new kids to that, it can change that. It can change how you look as a school, how people perceive you as a school, and how you're even able to serve your kids. So be careful about how many students you're looking to take in a given year. Even if for your budget, you believe you need to take in 30, 40, 50 kids across the school, brand new, that may not be great for the culture of your school. So you need to be careful about that. It's not recommended to offer scholarships, financial aid, or discounts for pre-K. Most Catholic schools' pre-K programs are the lowest cost non-public school option. So most schools do not offer discounts for pre-K, and I'm in favor of that. We're offering something much more affordable than a lot of daycare centers and a lot of pre-K centers, and we're offering something much better. So for the money, people are getting something way better to come into our pre-K programs. There's still a lot that we need to do to maintain those families as they go into kindergarten. And we can talk about that in another training, or you can talk to me about it personally. But a family who's in pre-K, I probably will not offer any financial aid to or any discount to. If that family is staying into kindergarten and says we can't stay unless we have assistance, then we can talk about that process. So it's a little bit different. Do not open any additional sections unless your wait list hits a critical mass of students. If you are enormously successful in your bringing in more students, you already had a classroom that was at about 28, 29 kids, and all of a sudden you have a wait list of a bunch more kids, but it would only give you, say, 15 kids per classroom or 18 kids per classroom. That's not quite enough. So what you want to avoid is adding expense by adding more students. If you add enough students that it offsets all of that expense, of course, that's terrific. If you have the room and the possibility of opening up a second classroom, that is an enormously great problem to have. That is terrific. Hire a new teacher, have that new classroom, and it's wonderful. You can serve more kids. But if you open up a second classroom and suddenly both your classrooms have 17 kids in them, that's not going to be enough. That's not going to work out very well for your budget or for those students. So just make sure that when you're adding kids, you're not also adding expense, basically. Now, financial aid, I should mention, is the last step in the student's admission process. And that follows the academic assessment. If it's required, if your school requires students to bring in a report card or take a test, you have to do that. It follows the applications, both for enrollment and for financial aid. They have to follow all the steps just like any other family. It follows the document review by the financial aid committee, the agreement among ourselves that the school can adequately meet the needs of the student. So if the student has any sort of special needs, do you have the means to meet those needs? Do you have the programs in place to meet those needs? If you don't, you are doing that student a disservice and an injustice by bringing them into your school. You need to make sure that they end up in the school that's best for them. And the family's agreement, the family and school's agreement that the student and the school are a good match academically, behaviorally, etc. So again, financial aid is the last step. We should be getting through all of these other parts. Did they fill out all the correct forms? Did they prove the need? Did they prove the academic ability? Did they prove the behavioral history? Did we prove that we can adequately serve the student well and give them everything that they need? Then we can talk about financial aid. So we're talking about bringing in the right students, filling the right seats, not filling every single seat just because we have an empty one and they have a need, making sure that they're going to be a great fit for us. In all of my other trainings, I talk about parent ambassadors and specifically parent referrals. Parent referrals are the way that we should be filling our schools every year. We should be having such satisfied parents that they want to go out and talk to other parents about how wonderful the school is, and they should bring their student here as well. I love parent referrals because it's a form of pre-vetting. They've already gone out and said, this kid would be a great match for my kid's school. They would be wonderful here. I would much rather have those than people who found our website through a Google search and are interested in what we do. Those are still great, but I would love to have those referral families. It makes this part of the process much, much easier. If one of my current families brings in a new family and says they'd be wonderful here, and the new family says we're very interested, but we can't quite afford it, that's a family I am super interested in offering a level of financial discount to. All right, that's fill the right seats. The next F, a floor. So you can see how this is kind of broken out, where we said we want to bring in a lot of students. And there were people who pushed back and said, but, we're concerned about A, B, and C. So we met those concerns with the financial aid assessor, the financial aid committee, filling the right seats. These are all the reasons to kind of like be careful about who we're bringing in. And this is the fourth one. This is the other one where we say, we're going to set a floor. We're going to decide that there's an amount below which no one will pay. Now that amount might shift a little bit per student and based on situation, but that is the way that we could, in a lot of cases, reassure a pastor, a financial manager, even a principal, that we were not going to lose money, that we were always going to have an appropriate amount of revenue, and that we would never charge something so low that it was inappropriate for that family and for other families. So let's talk about a tuition floor. The Financial Aid Committee's evaluation of each family should identify the minimum floor a family would be allowed to pay, subject to the tuition rate that the family has paid historically, if they're a current family applying for financial aid, or your total tuition rate that you're currently charging. Local or demographic benchmarks to help determine what is reasonable. So you have a neighborhood around you, you have a particular zip code. In that zip code, we know that financially folks are typically in this realm, and other families that we've had come from that area with those same financial needs are paying a different amount. And the school's own internally defined minimum tuition floor or floors. So we've said that any family, for example, that makes up to $40,000 a year for a family of 4, they definitely need a discount, and we are willing to discount that family 50%. They can pay $2,500 of the $5,000 rate. Now, if they're making more than $40,000, if they're making up to $50,000, maybe we'll give them a 40% tuition break. You can decide what those floors are, but it's the reassurance to everyone on that committee, we're not going to go below that. Unless there's an extremely rare example, a total exception of someone who has this need and we have a reason, they've been at the school for a very long time, a parent lost a job or a parent passed away, we're going to find a way to keep them. We're going to find a way to make sure that they can stay. Now, that might be the exception, but the vast majority of the time, you can stick to this floor and assure everyone, everyone's going to pay at least this amount when they come to the school. Now, I should mention too, the floor is not something we're going to publicize. We're not going to say at St. Anonymous School, our tuition rate for one student is $5,000, but you could pay as little as $2,500. We're not going to advertise that because this is a tuition discount. It's not a scholarship. It's not financial aid from some outside source. It is the way that we discount and work with families. What we say on our website instead is, if you're concerned about your ability to pay, please contact our school. Do not discount us because you can't afford it. Come and talk to us first. So we're not going to tell them exactly what the discount is or that there's a floor, because that would be inappropriate. People would start trying to get you to that floor every single time. It's going to be something that you know internally, and we're just not going to let families pay less than that amount. So the school should have its own internally defined minimum tuition floor, and the committee should then take this information. This is where it gets complex and where a lot of schools kind of give up on this process. Don't give up on the process. It's worth it. Your financial aid committee should be able to provide an opening offer and a minimum floor to the principal or to the registrar or to the marketer or to whomever is going to make this offer to the family. And yes, it's an offer. We are negotiating, and a lot of people don't like that. And I can't blame them. And if you even do some of this, if you're even able to offer some discounts, you're already ahead of a lot of schools, fine. But the best way to do it is to say, we believe that the family, out of $5,000 for their one student, we believe that that family is capable of paying $3,500. However, if they believe that they are not, and they can provide a compelling enough case, I am willing to lower that to our floor of $2,500. So I'm going to open up negotiations by saying, we've talked about it. You have been accepted for financial aid and for a discount. And here's the amount that we would like you to pay, $3,500. And if they come back and say that's not enough, and here's why, and they make a compelling argument, I can say, all right, the minimum that we could possibly charge you, and I apologize, this is the best we can do, is $2,500. If that's still not enough, we've done our best. We've done everything we could to help this family. They may still move on to another school. That's fine. But at least we tried. At least we did something, at least we really worked toward helping this family and helping our school. So I think that is the most appropriate way to do it, to have a level in mind that you believe the family can pay, and then have a floor that is the lowest amount that they could possibly pay, and then make that offer, have that negotiation. It does not take nearly the amount of time that it sounds like it does, and it is not nearly as gut-wrenching as it sounds like it is. It takes a little practice, but it is absolutely worth it. So if we get them to that point where they finally feel like, yes, we can do this, then we absolutely need an ironclad finalized tuition agreement. got to have the tuition agreement and it's got to be finalized. And I mean, signed, sealed, delivered, all totally correct. Here's what that means. The best thing to do is for that family to have direct engagement by the principal or whomever the team member is with whom they've developed a relationship. Often that was me, the marketer, because I was working alone in the school during the summer. I was giving tours. They got to know me very well. The principal is unavailable because they are, thank goodness, on vacation and getting the rest that they need. So I'm the one who's making these tuition offers and these negotiations with the family. So I would directly engage with them, call them up, or even better, bring them in to sit down with them. And I would make that offer. It is a key opportunity to build a relationship between the school and the family, to promote the value of your school so they understand what they're getting, what they're paying for, why it is worth the money that we're charging. And especially relative to other schools in the area, other alternatives, public schools that they could be going to. We are so much better than those public schools because of these test scores, these extracurriculars, these programs that we offer for each student. We are the best option. We are worth the money. It's a great opportunity to demonstrate the commitment of the parish and the school that we are making to their child, to tell them, like, we don't do this for every family. We really work hard to make sure that families can come here and afford it and be able to enjoy this place. But you need to know, like, we are committed. We're doing what we can to help you. You can tell them the cost of educating a student. The cost of educating a student is $6,000. Our list tuition rate is $5,000. Our actual offer is $2,000. So it's not just a discount of $3,000 from that $5,000 rate. It's a discount of $4,000 because we weren't even charging you what it costs to educate your child in the first place. We're taking a loss on students and we know that. And so we're discounting it even further. If you feel comfortable sharing that, you can. But there are a lot of different ways you can frame it. And this is something that I can work on you with, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But this is an opportunity to enable the principal to evaluate if and why the offered tuition rate can and should be dropped to the minimum tuition rate. So if I'm sitting with you and I say, we'd like you to pay $3,500 of the $5,000 tuition rate, and you say, we can't do that either, I would say, tell me why you think that you can't get to that amount, because here's the breakdown of your monthly tuition amount. It would be $250 a month over the course of 10 months. Is that something that we can do, or what amount do you feel comfortable paying every month? And so if they've got, I'm sorry, it's $350 a month. I said it was $3,500. Anyway, they can give me the reasons why they can't pay that or why they think they should be able to pay less. And then I can decide right there and then, should they be paying the minimum tuition amount? There's a lot of finessing here, and a lot of it will come down to how committed are these parents to the school? How ready is this kid to be in this school? How confident am I that they're going to succeed? And how confident am I that they're going to be able to keep up with these payments? And how confident am I that they have this level of need? You know, we only get a handful of things reported to us. We choose to believe families when they tell us about their financial situation. And so what can we do for them? And how hard are we looking to work for this family? How hard are they looking to work for us? It can get a little bit tricky. And you can definitively measure and track instances where minimum tuition rate was not low enough. If you engage with these families and you keep track of it in a tuition tracker, or if you keep a spreadsheet, and I can give you a simple spreadsheet for this. If you keep a spreadsheet of the offers you made and how many families actually accepted them, how many families thought they were too high, how many families thought they couldn't pay even the minimum tuition rate, you can look at that the next year and say, well, maybe our whole tuition structure is kind of incorrect. Maybe we need to rethink this, or maybe we need to rethink the way that we offer financial aid. But it allows you to track it in a way that those Post-it notes did not. I'm available for role play. I love this. I loved role playing with people about these financial aid situations. I'll sit down, I will be the parent, and you can be the principal and talk to me about the financial aid offer. I can be the principal and you can be the parent. You can bring up all of the different reasons that you can't afford these things, and I'll tell you the sensitive way to deal with that, and the sensitive way to say to someone, it sounds like we're not going to be able to come to a rate that's going to work for you. I'm very sorry about that. Sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we do have to turn away families, but it used to be that I was turning away families at this point where they were barely past the website. Now I've gotten them through all of these other points, and now I'm turning them away here. And I turned away far, far fewer families at this point than I ever did when we weren't offering those discounts. I hate turning families away. I will do anything I can to get them into the school. So contact me if you'd like to go through some of those kind of role play ideas. Now, let me go back and say again, finalized tuition agreement. That is both the process of finalizing it, of coming up with a rate that's going to work for that family, but also the procedure of putting that down on paper, of getting it signed, of making sure that everyone understands it and executing that document. And that's what we'll talk about here. Tuition collection best practices. And it's really just financial aid documentation best practices, because here's the thing. Every family, every single family, regardless of financial aid status, needs to sign a tuition contract. That is a must. You have got to have that in your school if you do not already. You have got to sign a tuition contract, because otherwise we have no real recourse if they decide not to pay tuition, or if they decide that their tuition rate was a different amount than you think it was. This is the way that we mark down that agreed upon amount and the way that we hold them to it when those conversations come up. We want to believe that every family has the best intention, but every school, every year, has families who don't have the best intentions or just don't have the ability that we thought that they might to pay that tuition rate. How they work with us down the road will differ in a lot of ways. Some families just say, I don't feel like paying. Some families say, I lost the ability to pay. Can you please help me? Can you please work with me? A month from now, I'm concerned about my ability to pay, and we can help those families. But all of it is anchored in this agreement. They have to have signed a tuition agreement. So that is every family, regardless of financial aid status. In that contract, it needs to include their payment amount, processes for paying, and due dates for payments. It should also include a consequence for late payment or no payment. I'm going to pull up here in just a moment a sample tuition agreement. I forgot that I was going to share this with you, but we need to show them exactly when these things are due, what they're going to cost, and what the consequence is for late or no payment. And we also need to have, very importantly, a confidentiality clause. This is something a lot of schools had not thought about before. Then they started up their financial aid program, and then parents started coming to the office and saying, well, how come the Johnson family only pays $2,500 a year when my family has to pay the full $5,000? How come they're getting a break and I'm not? I have financial need. Well, that puts us in a bind. We don't want to offer financial aid to every single family. We want to offer financial aid to the families who seek it out and who then prove they have that need, and we agree with it. But if we have all of our families at once suddenly say, well, that's not fair, they get to pay less than I do, that's not fair, that's going to be a burden. It's going to be difficult. So we need to have a confidentiality clause. And that confidentiality clause assures them that we are being confidential about it and reminds them that they need to be confidential about it. So let me see if I can pull up that tuition agreement real quick, because I think it's worth taking a look at, and it is something that I can make available to you. So I believe I'm sharing that now. I hope I am. So this is what a financial aid agreement might look like. And it has the note at the top that says, we've agreed to bring you into the school and that you will pay a certain fee. Here's what registration and other applicable fees would be at the top. Here's what our standard tuition rate is. Here's the amount that we are discounting you, or the scholarship that we're offering. So therefore, this is your full tuition rate for the year. And here's what the monthly payment will be if you pay it August through May. So we've told them all the rates and everything like that. Even better would be if I had due dates on here, which you definitely should. And then I mentioned, please note that discounts are applied to tuition only. Other fees are not waived or discounted. This new monthly rate will show on your statement or auto debit statement that you receive from Smart Tuition. Please contact the school office if you have any questions. A copy of this tuition agreement will be added to your family's file, along with the registration paperwork, enrollment acceptance form, and health forms you have submitted. Then we have the requirements. We have in there, the following requirements must be met to receive the above tuition assistance. You must complete your enrollment online, or however you do your enrollment, if you have a physical enrollment paper system or if you have an online enrollment. You have to pay the registration fee by certain dates. Tuition must be paid using an automatic debit through your tuition management system, however you do it. Student must maintain acceptable academic and disciplinary standing and keep absences and tardiness to a minimum. This should match up and line up with your student handbook. Whatever requirements you have in your student handbook for a student to remain enrolled, those are essentially the same requirements for a student to continue receiving financial aid. We have to hold them to those same standards. Other requirements as dictated by external scholarships. Some external scholarships require thank you notes or students attending events. Then I have a little bit of reasoning for why we offer tuition assistance and how it's important. Then I have the agreement that we are going to be confidential about this. By signing this tuition agreement, you'll see it's all in bold. You acknowledge that you and your family will not share with any other families the nature of your financial aid agreement, the process of determining your level of financial aid, the amount of tuition your family pays, the type or amount of scholarships you are receiving, or any other information regarding your financial commitment to the school. This information is all confidential. Failing to adhere to this agreement may put your financial aid and/or enrollment status at risk. And right below that, they check a box that acknowledges all of the above. This confidentiality agreement is so important. We don't want this word spread around. It is no one's business what anyone else is paying, and it hinders our ability to offer aid in the way that we want to. So let me go back to the slides. So I have that tuition agreement available for you. You can contact me and I can send it to you. I'll try to put it up in the digital library as well, along with an acceptance letter for the family to sign. Every step of the process, you need to have family signatures on things, because if you ever have any sort of dispute with this, you can go back and you can say, well, you signed it on this day. We agreed to it, so we have to hold you to that. These are now contracts. We don't want to have suggestions or ideas or anything like that. We want to have contracts. It should also mention on there if you have necessary fundraising or service hours, information on referral incentives. Let me tell you, I love referral incentives. I mentioned earlier how much I love referrals. The best way to drive referrals is a referral incentive. You can go to any of my other webinars and you'll see a little bit more about referral incentives on there. But this is a terrific thing to mention to families as they're enrolling and as they're talking about their financial need. They could say, I can't afford $3,500 a year. I can barely afford the $2,500 a year that's the minimum. And we could say, well, we can get you in on that. Also remember, we offer a $500 referral incentive. If you bring in another family and they enroll in our school, we'll knock another $500 off your tuition. And we don't limit it. You can bring in as many families as you want. And until you run out of tuition to pay, we will continue discounting for every family that you bring in. So if you bring in 7 families, you would have paid off your entire tuition. What a terrific thing that would be. I always mentioned this to families as I was talking to them about financial aid, and some of the families who were receiving discounts were the best referrers I ever had. I had a family bring in 3 families in 1 year, knocking $1,500 off of their tuition. They were thrilled, and the new families that they brought in were terrific. They were wonderful additions to the school because, again, they were pre-vetted, they were ready to come to the school. It was a great deal for everyone. So mention during those early days when you're talking to people about financial aid, any of the opportunities that they have to bring down their tuition amount, to fundraise, to do whatever it can to pay a little bit less, and it will make it easier for them to come into the school with that knowledge. Like I said, I've got that sample tuition and agreement form. I will try to put those up in the library, but if you don't see them very quickly, go ahead and email me and I'll get them to you. So some FAQs about implementation. Should I advertise our financial aid program? If you're just starting to offer discounts, a tempered approach may be to pilot this program with prospective families who've already reached out, or to reach out directly to religious education families. RE families are a great source of kids in this situation. A lot of times, pastors want us to believe that religious education students are low-hanging fruit, that they're the ones who should be enrolling in our school. They're already getting Catholic education inside of our school walls. Shouldn't it be easy? No, because our religious education programs are terrific. They're paying very little to get a great education about religion on the weekends. It would cost a lot more to get this 5 days a week. So we have to approach them with sensitivity and saying, we want you to be here. We want you to be our students, but we also understand that you're choosing this other means of Catholic education because it's affordable. So let's make this affordable for you. Let's work with you to make this affordable. So that's a great way to pilot this program, is to work with your RE families first. In any case, the school leadership should prepare to be proactively transparent about this key program. Be prepared to talk about it. People will have questions. Should I provide this information to families who have shown interest but not applied? If you believe that a family did not apply because of financial aid, then reach out to them ASAP. If that's the reason that you think that you didn't apply, talk to them. We do have this new financial aid program. We want you to be part of it. What if my current families find out about this program? Okay, yeah, that's going to happen. If you haven't broadly communicated the existence of this program and a current family approaches you about applying for aid, they should be allowed to do so. If they come to you and they say, I'm concerned about my ability to pay, yeah, let's find a way. Let's find a way to get you paid, to get your tuition paid and to make it appropriate for you. So even if they've paid full tuition for years, if this has been a massive struggle for them and they can prove financial need, they have as much right to it as anybody. Should I run every family through the financial aid process? Not necessarily. Only families who follow the process, only have families follow the process if they actively seek financial aid or if you believe they should. So that means either a prospective family who says, I'd love to come to your school, but I don't think I can afford it. Boom, you're someone I need to talk to about financial aid. Or a current family who says, I absolutely adore this school, but I have to leave because we can't afford it anymore. I need to run you through the financial aid program as well. How long should this process take? The faster, the better. Ideally, families would receive an offer within 2 weeks of seeking that financial aid. They're actively looking for other schools right now. You want to get back to them as soon as possible, but you still have to be responsible about it. Frequently asked questions about expectations. Isn't it true that those who invest the least are the least invested? Wow, this term really knocked me back on my heels one time when I heard it. A principal told me, we've been discounting for families and we have found that the students who invest the least are the least invested. Those families who are charged the least tuition are the last ones to pay it, or they never pay it. And they don't have an investment in the school. They don't feel like part of the school. That can be a problem. This can certainly be the case. That is why a tuition floor is recommended. More importantly, we need to invest in them. We need to invest in those families who are receiving financial aid or discounts if we expect them to invest in us. And that's true of all of our families. We need to invest in all of our families if we expect to invest in us, but it's doubly true here. That means sharing the news, sharing good news about the school, offering them meaningful service or volunteer opportunities, and doing whatever it takes to ensure families feel valued. There are schools out there who are treating their discounted low-income families differently than their full-paying families. They have different expectations, and we do not want that. Should I ask families receiving financial aid to complete service hours or participate in fundraising? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Some schools are so compassionate that they say, well, if this family is already working 4 jobs between mom and dad and barely affording what we do, can we in good conscience ask them to complete service hours or participate in our fundraising activities when they may not have the means to do so? Still, you need to do that. You have to have them involved. Absolutely. They should be held to the same standards as any other family that comes into the school. In fact, it's important to impress upon families receiving aid the importance of increasing enrollment and raising funds as a way to keep tuition low and ensure that this opportunity is available to even more families. Everyone needs to know how important it is to do the service hours and to complete your fundraising requirements, because that is for the health of the school and the long-term ability for us to bring in more kids. Some schools swing the other way. Should I ask families receiving financial aid to complete additional service hours as though they owe us something because we gave them something? No, we do not recommend adding extra requirements for families receiving aid. Their discount is justified by their financial situation. They don't need to do anything else. They have a financial need and we're meeting it. They should be reminded, though, that they're just as valuable as any other family and that their volunteer hours, support, and referrals are incredibly important. They need to be told over and over again, you are equally important to anyone here. You are not defined by your financial contribution to this institution. Should I offset my losses? Losses, again, these are not losses. When you bring in a student and you don't get full tuition for them, that's not a loss, that's a gain. The empty seat, that's a loss. But should I offset my losses by charging higher rates for full paying families, i.e. a sliding scale? Some schools will say, if $5,000 is our list rate, then maybe some families should pay $6,000, $7,000 because they can afford it. And that will offset the loss for the family who's paying $3,000 or $2,000. No, that's it's a weird kind of way to go. I don't recommend it. Remember, filling an empty seat is a gain, not a loss. Don't look at trying to offset a loss. If you believe that your tuition needs to be higher overall, that's a different conversation. But that sliding scale gets really complicated, and it's tough to put parameters around that that make it appropriate for all families. It's an option, it's just kind of a difficult one. Referral incentives. Should I allow families receiving aid to also collect referral incentives? Absolutely. This should be a part of the conversation when you're negotiating a rate with the family. It will make affording tuition easier, and it could bring you more students. And please contact me. I can give you referral flyers. I can give you referral cards. I can give you all sorts of information about starting a referral incentive program if you don't have one right now. How can I let current parents know about our referral incentive? Have a Toyotathon. So I love referral incentives because what they are about is a reminder. It's about awareness. Telling parents over and over and over again, we want more kids in this school, and we want kids that you know, your nieces, your nephews, your neighbors, your coworkers' kids. Those are the kids that we want in this school. So bring them to us. A lot of schools offer a referral incentive, and I'll go to the school and I'll ask a parent just randomly, so do you know about the school's referral incentive? Do you know how much it is? And they'll say, I didn't even know we had one. I don't know what a referral incentive is. And the principal says, well, it's in the handbook. How closely did everyone read the handbook? Hopefully very, but probably not. So the point is, we should have a referral incentive program, and then we need to let people know about it. And the best opportunity is when you're looking for kids. So look at your history and figure out when your school is bringing in students. And during that period, have a Toyotathon. I call it Toyotathon. It's a made-up word. That's a silly word, but we all know what it means. Toyota needs to sell a bunch of cars, so they do a huge event and they discount it and they make a big deal out of it. So during that, you could take a month. You could say during the month of April, or even April 15th to May 15th, we're going to give you that tuition discount of that referral incentive. And during that month, we're going to double it. You bring in a family and they sign up. Instead of giving you $500 off your tuition, we're going to give you $1,000 off your tuition. But it is during these dates, you have to follow those parameters. You have to bring them in during this time. And if they tour the school during that time, even if they sign up later, we're going to double your referral incentive. It's terrific. It gives parents a sense of urgency. So they might have brought in this family anyway, but they might have brought them in later in the summer. But now they're bringing them in at the exact time that you need families. So please contact me. I can talk to you all about how to create a sense of urgency, how to use a referral incentive to bring in a whole bunch more families. Expectations for families on financial aid, the bottom line. Avoid lower expectations. Do not hold these families to lower standards just because they're paying less money. Avoid higher expectations. Do not put things into place that make it harder for this family to be a student at your school or to be a family at your school just because they're paying less. Expectations should be the same for all of our families. Make sure families understand this from the very beginning, that even though you're paying a little bit less, we still expect you to be as engaged and involved as anyone. We still want you to volunteer, but we're going to do our best to make those volunteer opportunities meaningful. And perhaps there are things that you can do in your off time. Perhaps you have some experience with websites or photography or anything where you wouldn't have to come to the school during the day. You wouldn't even have to get Vertis trained because you're doing this at a different time in a different place. I can help you with a ton of that. I've got so many great volunteer opportunities for your parents that you should know about. 2 more future fundamentals before we get out of here. 2 more Fs to add to the 5 Fs that were already there. 1 is fundraising development. That means raising supplemental funds to support financial aid efforts. That's critical to long-term sustainability. If you want to keep doing this, if you want to keep offering aid to students, the best way to do it is to have that fund to offer. And I would suggest working with our Sunday Visitor. They have a terrific annual fund program. I would love to introduce you to them. I would love to refer you to them. We have a partnership. That would be terrific. The other thing is finding the prospective families. How do we even go about finding them? And I've given many webinars on marketing, but you should ask me for additional languages and best practices for advertising your financial aid program. But I do want to say, like, I recently found a tool that is just absolutely terrific. Oh yeah, that's approaching religious education families. Unbound 360. I cannot say enough about Unbound 360. It is an incredible database program that will help you find families in your area. It is amazing. It has a ton of terrific resources, and it makes it so easy to go out and find families. Contact me. I'd love to set you up with them, another partner of mine. I'm very careful about companies that I recommend working with These two I fully believe in because I've worked with them, I've seen what they do, and I know that it's amazing. You will rarely see me recommend another company or partner because I don't exactly know them. These two I know extremely well, and they are awesome. They could change everything about your school inside of a year. I'll tell you that. Some other timely tools if you need them. The NUT cards. This is the best program we've ever come up with. This is a great way to increase early re-enrollment, re-registration in your school. Having a big visual display in your office. I call it an enrollment display so that every student can see whether or not they are already signed up. Check out my other webinars for that. An incentive for the first classroom that hits 100% re-enrollment. Terrific way to go. If you have tours coming up this summer, if you know you're going to have families coming in, an easy thing to have is a school profile sheet. If your school doesn't have a really effective way of talking about itself, a piece of paper that they can hand out at different community events, this is a wonderful one. And it's super easy for me to create a template for you that you can work from. This is free. Email me, I'll send you a template that looks just like this and has some of your school's information in it. You just complete the rest and boom, you've got your brand new marketing piece, super easy to use. Now, as you go out to those events and hand out these school profile sheets, you need to be collecting information back as well. The best way to do that, online interest form. This is perfect for collecting information at community events, open house events, and after mass. This is a must for the summertime. You've got to get people filling this out. If they come and see you at an event and you hand them a flyer and they walk away, you get nothing. You have no idea if they ever even considered your school. But if they give you a small amount of information, you can reach out to them and keep that conversation going. I can provide this for you for free as well. So just contact me. I can give you a Google Sheet for your school, super simple. You can check out a sample form or you can email me directly. Now at this time, typically I would take questions, but of course I'm recording this directly. So I'm just going to move on to thanking you very much for watching this. I hope that this was a worthwhile use of your time. I know I went over an hour on this one because it is such an important topic. It's very heavy. There's a lot to it. And don't feel like you have to make this change all at once. And don't feel like you have to make it alone. Please contact me, kurtthemarketer.com, kurtthemarketer@gmail.com. I'd love to talk to you about it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, drop me a line and I'll get back to you. I'm here all summer and I would love to talk to you more about how I can help you with this particular issue or any other marketing issues that come up with in your school. Everyone who sees this is entitled to a free half-hour consultation, and they often go a little bit longer, and that's just fine. We can get a lot done in a half an hour. So call me up, we'll talk, it'll be amazing. Anyway, I hope you have a terrific summer. I hope that you're winding down your school year and that things end in a great way, and that you have time to really refresh and refill your soul and your mind and come back rejuvenated and ready to go for next year. But in the meantime, if you need anything, please let me know. Have a wonderful summer, and I will talk to you later. Thanks very much.